Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 world secrets finally exposed. The world is full of mysteries which are amazing and interesting, but what's even more interesting is when these secrets and mysteries are finally revealed. From planes vanishing into thin air to odd quacking noises that baffled scientists for decades, get ready to be astounded. But before we get all mysterious, be sure to subscribe and press the notification bell too, because it really does help me out. Coming in at number 10, we have the Bermuda Triangle. We all know the Bermuda Triangle. It's seen as one of the scariest waters in the world, located just off the coast of Florida. It's said to have mysterious powers, as ships seem to sink in the area and planes seem to fall out of the sky. In fact, over 75 planes and hundreds of ships have vanished here. Now, based on those facts, you're probably thinking there's something odd and undiscovered going on here. Well, recently marine scientists have worked out what the cause of all these things going missing in the Bermuda Triangle is. It is odd, but it's not to do with the area having water powers or aliens abducting ships and people. You see, in the area of water there are air pockets which can shoot up out of the water. This can cause boats to sink by creating holes in them or tipping them over. And sometimes these air pockets can go so high they reach low-flying small aircrafts. So that's why this area of water is responsible for all these disappearances. I'm sorry, I wanted it to be aliens too. Thanks a lot, science. Next up is missing plane. It seems impossible that an airplane full of people could vanish out of nowhere. But just look at MH307 for example, which still hasn't been solved. However, in 1942 a different plane disappearance occurred which led to a lot of confusion and theories. One day in 1942 the Canadian Air Force was training in British Columbia when one of their planes vanished. The 4 pilots inside the plane were also never heard from again. Despite a massive search effort, nothing turned up until 71 years after the disappearance. In 2013, Canadian loggers on Vancouver Island found the wreckage of their plane and the pilot's remains. Next up is the Tunguska Blast. Now this one is seriously mind-bending and amazing. In 1908, a massive part of the Siberian forest in Russia was destroyed due to a large explosion. The explosion was 1,000 times bigger than that of an atomic bomb. However, there was no record of anyone bombing this random piece of forest. The radius of the damage was so large, it took over 100 years to find the center of where the explosion happened. After this was finally found, many people claimed the Russians had a secret super bomb which accidentally went off, and others said it could have been an alien attack on Earth. However, in 2013, those theories were blown up themselves. Researchers found a piece of meteorite near the blast zone, and it was later found to have been the cause of this massive and mysterious blast. Next up is Columbus's ship. This one is about a ship called the Santa Maria. This ship was one that Christopher Columbus used to get to America. However, on December 24th, Christmas Eve 1492, it hit a coral reef and sank. Columbus and his crew sailed to Spain, leaving the wreckage behind without noting where. For hundreds of years it was a mystery as to what happened to the Santa Maria. However, in 2014, Barry Clifford revealed he'd found the wreckage of the Santa Maria. He used notes and many archival findings from Columbus's diaries and other old historical research tools. The crazy thing is, Barry'd actually found it in 2004, but didn't report it until 10 years later as he wasn't 100% sure. Next up we have ocean quacks. Okay, if you've got this far on the list, you should know by now that oceans are a very mysterious place. Well, in the southern oceans, hundreds of submarine crew members kept hearing odd sounds from underneath the sea. This went on for 50 years and the sound was kind of like a quack from a duck. Some said it was due to a large sea monster like a megalodon. Others said it could be missiles being tested landing in the ocean. However, in 2014, scientists looked into this and they found the sounds were coming from the common minke whale all along. Who knew whales sounded so much like ducks underwater? Next up is King Richard III. It's common knowledge that King Richard III of England died on the battlefield in 1485. However, nobody knows how he died and historians have been debating this for hundreds of years. But in 2012, Richard's skeleton was found underneath a parking lot in Leicestershire. Who'd have thought one of the most famous British monarchs was buried underneath a parking lot of a supermarket all these years? Scientists and historians were quick to examine the wounds on his remains. They found he'd been rushed by multiple people, but the thing that took his life was a sword to the skull. Ouch. Next up is the pyramids. It's one of the greatest mysteries of all time. How were the ancient Egyptian pyramids built? Some say it was the Mayans, others say it was aliens. Point is, there's a lot of theories about this. That was until 2014, when physicists in the Netherlands used drawings and diagrams found in ancient tombs to uncover the mystery. The stone blocks were moved by dozens of men on sleds. Water was poured on the sand to lubricate the ground and allow these sleds to move. Kind of like an ancient slip and slide, although I bet they didn't have much fun. Next up is sliding stones. This mystery is coming from Death Valley in Nevada, USA. On a dry lake bed out in the desert, some rocks seem to be able to move around all by themselves across the ground. Some of the stones were as big as 700 pounds, and they seem to move all by themselves, leaving a trail behind them in the sand. For years, people wondered how this happened, and theories about These stones include anything from UFOs to haunted rocks. However, in 2011, researchers were determined to find out what was behind these mysterious stones. By law, they weren't allowed to attach GPSs to the rocks, so they bought their own rocks and put GPSs on those. After 2 years, they found out these rocks had a pretty simple explanation to them. A small amount of water freezes underneath them, and that's how they slide around. This water then melts, leaving behind no trace of the ice from before. Very sneaky, nature, very sneaky. Next up is Abandoned Ship. This is another amazing maritime mystery. But don't worry, this one is super amazing. In 1872, a ship transporting alcohol called the Mary Celeste was found floating around the Azores Island with no crew. No log entries had been made for 10 days and the ship's lifeboat was missing. Everyone's belongings were still on board and the cargo wasn't touched either, however no one was found ever again. For decades, this was a mystery until experts noticed that some of the barrels of alcohol had leaked. If this would have accidentally ignited, this could have caused an explosion. The explosion likely wouldn't have done that much damage, but the crew thought the ship was bound to catch fire and sink. So that's why they all sailed off in the missing lifeboat. Next up is Stonehenge. Stonehenge is one of the 7 wonders of the world, but it's also one of the biggest mysteries. The mysterious clusters of stones in the UK are so old that nobody at the time would have the equipment to move these, let alone plant them in the ground. However, experts have finally worked out how this amazing site was created all those years ago. You see, they used a very advanced lifting method. They then used logs to secure the stones, and that's how they sank into the ground. It took hundreds of years, but I think we can finally say mystery solved.